Hello everyone, it's me, Dave Tong, come to join you again in the storytelling circle at the World Storytelling Cafe. Here I am again in my garden. The sun is sort of shining. The birds are singing noisily. Hold on to that thought, we'll come back to birds in a very short while. But for the moment, I'd like to say this. I have not come alone this day. I brought a very special guest, a very special friend with me. There she is, look just behind me. Lady Fortune. Some call her Dame Fortune. You can call her either. She'll answer to both. If you look close, you'll see that she's standing behind a great cartwheel that she's spinning around and around and around. Look closer still and you will see that many medieval folk cling to that wheel. For they believed long ago that we all clung to Dame Fortune's wheel, and sometimes we would rise upon that wheel, which meant that we were having good luck. But the wheel dictates for some of us to rise, others must be falling. They must be having bad luck. So it was, and so it perhaps still is. For certainly there are many, including myself, who feel like we really are falling upon Dame Fortune's wheel at the minute. But just remember, my friends, as the wheel keeps turning, many of us will rise again. A little bit of hope then, a chink of light in these dark times. Well, I brought my friend Dame Fortune with me this day because know this, she lurks unseen, not just in my stories, but in most of the stories you'll hear other tellers tell at the World Storytelling Cafe. For certainly most of my stories, they deal with the fortunes of some, the misfortunes of others, and often they go hand in hand. Look closer still. You will see that she is blindfold. She cannot see all of those people clinging to a wheel. And so it is, she cares nothing for men's and women's estates and degrees. Posh and poor, all could and did fall upon her wheel. Even medieval monarchs could fall long ago. For know this, my friends, once a king lay dying, but his would not be an easy death, for the king had 3 sons, all with many faults and few merits, or so he thought. And so he could not decide who among them would become the next king when he was dead and gone. Such were his woes and worries, he could not decide, and so he summoned to him his wisest advisers, old men, sage old fellas, all with bent backs and beards so long that they dusted the floor as they walked along. The old king asked their help. They went away for 3 days to ponder upon the problem. And no, that's the best kind of thinking there is. And when at last they returned, they said, "Sire, my lord, in order to know which of your 3 sons should be the next king when you are dead and gone, first you must know something of their natures. What makes them the way they are? And in order to know their natures today, you must ask them a question. This question. If you were a bird, what bird would you be and why?" Heeding the wise men's words, the old king sent for his first son, his eldest son, who was called Robert. And he said, Robert, my boy, if you were a bird, what bird would you be and why? "That's easy, father," said Robert. "If I were a bird, I would be a falcon, a hunting bird of prey. For that fierce bird, it sets its beady eye upon its prey, be it pigeon, duck, other bird or beast. It swoops and it does not stop until it's taken all that it wants. Just as a good king, he should not stop until he has taken all that he wants in this world." Now I wonder, who thinks that's a good answer? There's always one or two. Who thinks it's a bad one? Well, the king did not think. Instead, he summoned his second son, who was called William Rufus, meaning William the Red, for the lad was known for his fiery red hair and his fiery red temper. And he said, William, my boy, if you were a bird, what bird would you be and why?" "Oh, that's easy, father," said the lad. "If I were a bird, I would be an eagle, for the eagle is feared by all other birds, just as a good king he should be feared by all of his people. Well, who thinks that's a good answer? Not many, I think. Who thinks it's a bad one? The king did not think. Instead, he sent for his youngest son, who was called Henry. And he said, Henry, my boy, if you were a bird, what bird would you be, and why? But Henry could not decide, and so he went away for a few days. Perhaps it was 3. And here comes another train. So now it's going that way last time. This time it's going that way, back to Norwich. Henry could not decide, and so he went away for 3 days, and he pondered upon that problem. Before returning to his father and saying, Father, I cannot decide, and so perhaps I would be a starling, or maybe I would be a swan. I would be a starling because it's a communal bird. It lives as one with all of the other starlings. Just as a good king, he should be at one with his people. And I would be a swan because it has a long curved neck, giving any words coming from its heart a long time to travel up its neck, giving the bird time to think about everything it says. Just as a good king, he should think about everything he says and everything he does. I should be a starling, or maybe a swan. Well, I wonder, who thinks that's a good answer? Quite a lot of you, I think. Well, it was time for the king to think, to make his decision. Before I tell you whom he chose, though, I think it's time for us all to pause and reflect for a short while I ask all of you, if you were a bird, what bird would you be, and why? Now, some of you, I know, are thinking that you would be owls, for owls are wise birds. But know this, they were all so considered a portent of doom in medieval times. Some of you perhaps are thinking you would be skylarks, singing sweet, sweet songs, bringing joy and cheer to other people in these strange and unhappy times. That's all well and good, unless you've got a fear of heights like me. Now, looking at some of you, I think that you would like to be peacocks. But the best said about that, or is it the less said about that, the better? Yeah. Some of you might like to be robins. I'd like to be a robin too, you know. Pretty birds to be sure, but also cocky little buggers to boot. I would be a robin. Whatever bird you choose, I'm sure your answers are wise. Alas, the old king, he was not as wise as all of you. For many of you are hoping, expecting that he would have picked his youngest son, Henry, but he did not. Instead, he chose the middle son, William Rufus, William the Red, known for his fiery red hair and fiery red temper. For some of you probably already know, the old king, the sick king, was none other than William the Conqueror, originally Duke William of Normandy, but now William the First of this land, England, for he too had a fiery red temper. He chose his second son, and know that when at last the conqueror died, William the Rufus, William the Second of this land, he was true to his word, for he ruled England like the eagle. He was feared by all of his people. He stripped the church of its wealth long before Henry VIII ever did. He harshened his father's already harsh forest laws, so if the likes of you and I, the common sort, the poorer folk, were caught hunting simply to fill our bellies, to feed our families, we might lose a hand, an eye, we might even be hung by the neck until we were dead. So cruel was William Rufus that his few friends warned him to be on his guard, for there were many who wished him harm. But William didn't listen. He didn't even listen to what was going on inside his own head. For although he was happy by day, at night, while he slept, it was haunted by nightmares. And once it was on the eve of a hunt in a new forest down near the south coast of England. He dreamt he was being bled by his surgeon, that the doctor had taken a sharp knife, had nicked the vein, and now was letting a little bit of blood drip, 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 drip into a bowl held beneath for the purpose. But in the dream, the blood would not stop dripping. Instead, it got faster and faster and faster until it filled the bowl, until it spilt over the edges, until it filled William's dream, until it blotted out the setting sun. And the king, he woke with a start. He was terrified, so scared he ordered that his servants hold candles aloft whilst he slept. But the following morning, light was bursting in through the window, and William Rufus was happy once more. He was riding out on the hunt, and there was nothing he enjoyed more than that. Even better, his Fletcher, the man who had made his arrows, had made him a new quiver full of them, the finest arrows anyone had ever seen, peacock feather fletchings, the works. Everyone who looked at them went, "Ooh, ah," and you know what? They even went, "Wow." All of the courtiers wanted some of those arrows to go hunting with. But William Rufus wasn't about to share them with everyone. Instead, he gave half of them to his best friend, a young nobleman called Walter Tyrrell. For it was said of Tyrrell that he was the finest shot with a bow before the time of Robin Hood. And so it was that now they rode out on the hunt. Well, it seemed to William Rufus, William II of England, that already he was falling on Dame Fortune's wheel. For the hunting was poor that day. Not one deer, not one boar, not even a hare broke cover. And so over the course of the day's hunting, William and his courtiers, they spread out. And now as the sun began to set, William Rufus, his friend Walter Tyrrell, they found themselves separated from the rest of the group. They found themselves looking down a long avenue of trees that pointed west towards a setting sun. And so the two men decided they would wait on either side of the avenue, hidden amongst the ferns and bracken, to see what they might see. And as the sun was at its lowest, it was at its brightest. Both men set down their bows to shade and shelter their eyes. But as they did, they heard a crashing and a thrashing behind them, and now a great white stag broke cover. It ran between the two men. It ran west towards the setting sun. Without care, King William Rufus, he fitted arrow to bow. He leant, he aimed, he loosed. The arrow, it spun, it twirled, it hummed, but now it simply skittered off the tough hide of the tough beast. "Shoot, Walter," he called, "shoot now." Walter Tyrrell, with more care than the king, he fitted arrow to bow, he leant, he aimed, he loosed. The arrow, it flew through the air, it flashed, it shot, it hummed, it struck its target, it found its mark. But know that the great white stag kept running, for the arrow was sticking from the chest of the king. Tyrrell claimed it was an accident, yet still he mounted his horse, he rode to the nearest port, he sailed to his estates in France, never to return to this land. Even the king's younger brother Henry, who'd been on the hunt, he didn't help William. Instead, with his own men, he rode to Winchester, where he claimed the crown of England for his own. Such was the hatred for William Rufus, William II of this land, that none helped him. His body was left in the greenwood for, I would like to say, 3 days, until 2 charcoal burners. Some of you expecting it would be 3. It should have been 3, but one, well, he was self-isolating for some reason. 2, they took up the body. They put it on a rickety cart. They took it to Winchester, where it was buried without prayer, without care. Such was the hatred for the king. Well, as you've heard already, his younger brother Henry, who wished to rule as the starling or the swan, he became the next king of England. And he was a good king in many ways, for he started that process of uniting Normans and Saxons. Although there were some who whispered it was him who had paid Walter Tyrrell to kill his own brother. Although others said no, it was no mortal hand that killed the king. Instead, it was the spirits of the greenwood. it was Herne the Hunter, it was the Green Man, and that William Rufus had been a blood sacrifice to ensure that the woodlands of England remained forever green. And you know, my friends, as I finish that story, I look around my garden and I see the boughs coming into leaf. I see blossom. There is the beginning of that green. It reminds me that the year, it too turns in a circle, that soon summer will be here once more. A little bit of hope then, yet more light, just a chink of light in these dark times.